All right, so one day after Brexit, it's time for an update. So what has happened since? Well, you guys know David Cameron is resigning, so that was huge. Also, amazing number. This you might not know. The capital markets today lost, in combination, $2 trillion worth of value. Isn't that amazing? $2 trillion worth of value wiped off the face of the earth in one day. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not coming back, and some markets began to recover. The U.S. markets lost 3 to 4%, the Dow, the NASDAQ, etc., and some things benefited. Obviously, the pound went to a 31-year low, but the yen went up for the Japanese because that's a safe currency. Another safe shore is gold. Gold went up, so all those radio talk show hosts should be thrilled. It's the only ads they ever do. Get gold! Panic! Well, about Brexit, apparently they were a little bit right. So, now, let's talk about the other consequences. You know that in Britain, skepticism about the EU was, like, people in favor of the EU solidly, let's put it that way, was at 44%. In France, that number is only 37%. No, 38%. In Greece, it's 27%. So what happens next is everybody starts going, maybe we should leave. Now, before any of that happens, let's talk about Scotland. Because Scotland's got to be thinking, wait. UK told us not to leave. It would be a disaster to leave anything. And then you guys left. You left the EU. The strongest vote for the EU was in Scotland. Well, we like the EU. Why don't we become our own independent country and join the EU? Then we'll be back up to 28 members. So I think another referendum in Scotland is very likely. I don't know the time period that it would take to do that, but a lot of Scottish people have to be scratching their head now going, why shouldn't we leave? And especially because we don't apparently agree with you guys very much. Okay, and it's not that big a deal to leave things now, apparently, thanks to you guys. Then the French have got to be wondering, hey, maybe we should leave. The National Front, now currently that's the right-wing people who are more skeptical of the EU, are currently leading in the polls for who's going to win the next national office in France. So then you turn to Greece, and they only have 27% favorability for the EU. Why shouldn't they leave? Next thing you know, it starts to devolve. And that is part of the reason why everybody's panicking. But I think one other thing might happen that people aren't talking about, which is at some point, some of these markets are going to recover. And at some point, I hope the worst case scenario isn't going to happen. Now, I was in favor of UK remaining in the EU, but I also didn't believe in the fear-mongering like, oh my God, Britain will explode. Now, you can make an argument that I was wrong because we just lost $2 trillion worth of value across the world. But I wasn't talking about the world or the EU. I was saying in terms of Britain, well, what are they going to do? They're going to make new trade deals. They're going to make new treaties. And overall, I like the other deals better. That's why I wanted to remain, and I think that they've lost some leverage. But it's not like the world's going to end in this particular scenario. And once things settle down a little bit, I think a lot of the other countries will go, so they left, and everybody told us the world was going to explode, and it did for a little while, but then it turns out, not really, we're all still here. Maybe it's not that big a deal to leave. But it goes a little deeper than that, because it's not just about the EU. It's about the establishment in all these different countries saying, you have to believe us when we tell you you should be fearful and that you have to listen to us. Trust us that is super important and you cannot defy us. Well, what the voters in the UK did, in a way that I don't agree with, but is an interesting moment in time, they said, we don't believe you. Now, that part I do agree with in general principle. Now, again, I'm a progressive. I'd rather go left than right. But if you tell me I don't believe the establishment, I say you're right. Okay. Now, of course, it depends. It depends on what you're voting for and what the issue is. But when the establishment always shakes their finger at you, they wag it and they go, oh, you kids, you don't know anything. We know everything. Well, the UK just said, yeah, stick it. You can tell me anything you want, but I don't believe you anymore, establishment. So when we hopefully don't hit the worst case scenario and the UK recovers a little bit, the markets recover a little bit, and things stabilize, people are going to go, hey, yeah, you know what? Maybe the establishment was full of shit. in this case and many other cases where they'll be actually very, very right. So that then could lead to a lot more revolutions in a lot more countries where they go, we don't believe you anymore, and we're not going to listen to what you told us we had to do, because it turns out we don't have to do it. So to me, that is a significant silver lining in this vote that I otherwise disagree with and I'm disappointed by. Because as I said in the first night, the revolution has begun. Now let's all hope to God it goes in the right direction and doesn't sway towards the right wing and hating one another and trying to build more walls and more fences and rejecting each other as part of our identity. The reality is that the future of the world is when we come together, okay, and we've got to do that in a reasonable way. But the people running the world right now have earned your distrust. I certainly understand that, in some ways encourage that. Now let's just take that revolution, make sure it gives power to the people and not to the right-wing demagogues. All right, that's what's happening after Brexit. I'm Jake Uger. This is the Young Turks. Go.